In the business world, there are always going to be those who are considered the haves and the have-nots. But what does that mean for photographers? Is it even possible to be a rich photographer, or is that an oxymoron? On the other hand, what does it mean to be a poor photographer? Is it someone who's just starting out, it doesn't have much in the way of gear or experience? Or is it someone who's been in the business a while but isn't seeing financial success? Or is it both? One of my favorite books, and one book I recommend to every new business owner, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Let me know in the comments if you've read this book before. Now let's grab a hot cup of tea and get started. Hey, I'm Sarah Petty, and this channel is for photography business owners to learn how to build a thriving photography business and still be there for your family. You shouldn't have to pick. Hey, if this is a dream of yours, make sure to snap the subscribe button and click the bell notifications to stay on top of what I think is the best business photography content on YouTube. Now let's talk about the rich photographer versus the poor photographer and how they both approach business. Being a rich photographer, and rich may be like fingernails on the chalkboard. I rarely use that word, but I'm using it today because I really want you to think about this. Because being a rich photographer isn't just about how much money you make. For me, it's about being rich in time freedom so that you can build a business by design. A business where you can be at your kids' school for all of their school activities. Their preschool dance or their junior high spelling bee, you can be there. You can take the afternoon off and take them to the pool when they're like, hey mom, it's a beautiful day, skip work. You can say, heck yeah. And you can make a good living doing what you love too. Both of those. One of the biggest differences between rich and poor photographers, I believe, is how they approach business. The rich photographer understands that their photography business is a business first and foremost. I know sometimes people hear me say family first and they think only family. No, rich photographers, successful photographers know that in order to be successful, they need to treat their photography like any other business. This means having a clear understanding of their target market, knowing their niche, or niche if you're outside the US. You can make fun of me, it's okay. And having a marketing plan to reach their ideal clients. This photographer understands the seasonality of their business and they adjust their marketing plan accordingly. They don't just pop up and say, I don't have any business, I'm gonna do mini sessions. No, but listen to this one. They don't cancel client appointments. They don't avoid client communication. They don't avoid hard conversations. They pick up the phone, they answer texts, they answer email, and they clearly communicate the timeline for their creation and delivery. So they're setting realistic expectations for every step in the process. And when something goes wrong, they address it. They don't hide from it. Is it fun and easy? No. But your client is going to respect you for it. Poor photographers, they treat photography as more of a hobby than a business, which is fine. If it's a hobby, call it a hobby. But if you're calling it a business and you're canceling appointments or moving them willy-nilly or forgetting them because life is busy, I get it. That is what happens in life. It's going to be busy. But I've always had a plan B. And I think literally in my almost 25 years in business, I probably canceled 3 sessions. And I remember one vividly because I had a kid throwing up and I was driving to the emergency room. And they were like, oh my gosh, it's so fine, no problem. If my kids are sick, I get somebody to go sit with them for the session and then I go home. I just am so careful not to reschedule because I respect my clients' times. The poor photographer doesn't have backup plans. They have excuses. They don't return phone calls or emails or texts in a timely and professional manner. They may not have a clear understanding of who their target market is. So they're taking any kind of client and then that is turning them into a swirl and making bigger problems. As a result, they often struggle to find consistent work and they're sporadic in booking sessions, if at all. And when they do, it's typically from a discount or some promise of all these free digital files. They don't understand the activities they need to focus on to build a sustainable, profitable photography business. And they don't keep a schedule for marketing, for editing, for their business activities. We all have the same amount of time in a day. Do you not agree that there's somebody with fewer skills and fewer opportunities in a worse support system, maybe with even lower photography skills, who are making more money than you? Yeah, with the same number of hours in the day. Let's talk about the rich photographer versus the poor photographer when it comes to equipment. I really think another key difference between these two photographers is equipment. The rich photographer realizes that investing in high quality gear isn't a necessity. They invest in the gear that is important and critical for the objective they're trying to achieve for their clients, which is, yes, a high quality camera. And they also know that they don't need every piece of equipment out there. If it can increase their revenue, that's the filter they use before considering purchasing. Or if they do invest in a luxury lens, that's what I call them, they know that it's not to grow their business, it's just because they have the profit. And that's okay. They're never limiting their pay to the equipment that they have, and they always stay profitable. It's just like a great chef doesn't need the top pans to make a delicious meal. They could come into my house with my pans and make a fabulous meal. It's not about the equipment. The poor photographer, on the other hand, often spends more money on the latest and greatest camera because they're telling themselves that this is the reason customers come to me. I feel like an imposter if I don't have the best of the best. And listen, I promise you, this is not the case. How you build your business and how you structure your products and your pricing to serve your clients will always, always outweigh your need for fancy gear and equipment. You really don't need it. Let's talk about the rich photographer versus the poor photographer when it comes to profit. The rich photographer knows how to make a profit. They do. They know how to price their services and products correctly. They also understand their costs of goods sold, and they know how to pay themselves. The rich photographer also knows how to market. And if they don't, they're working on it. They're learning those skills. They're getting better at them, and they're building a brand that people fall in love with. Lastly, the rich photographer is always learning and growing, so they continue to make a profit from their photography services. Always, always, always. On the other hand, the poor photographer doesn't know how to make a profit. They're guessing. They underprice their services and products. They look at what their competitors are doing for inspiration. This price matching doesn't cover their costs or allow them to pay themselves. And you're going on the assumption that your competitors are even making a profit, and likely they're not. Get a little heated up over that conversation, but you can't assume your competitors are making money because seriously, most of them are not. The poor photographer focuses on getting more sessions at a lower price to try to increase their profits. More cheaper sessions, but it doesn't work that way. They don't understand marketing, branding, or an over-the-top, high-touch client experience. So they're not memorable to potential clients. Their clients usually pick them last or because they're cheap, not because they really want to come to them for what they offer. And lastly, the poor photographer isn't always learning and growing. They're stuck thinking, if I just work harder, I'll figure it out. And then they make the same mistakes over and over again, and then they beat themselves up because they're not good enough. And in reality, it's just because they didn't do what the rich photographer did, who learned from someone who was doing it before them. They shortened the learning curve, and that can totally be done. The bottom line is this: if you want to be, use whatever word you want, rich, wealthy, successful, happy photographer, you have to take care of your photography business and yourself. If you don't do both of these things, you'll be as stuck as the poor photographer who doesn't make any money from their business and is likely working harder than the well-off photographer who's making good choices. So what are you waiting for? Start taking care of your photography business right now. Listen, if you're ready to be a part of a community of boutique photographers who value family first, growing a business and encouraging one another, come join us. Seriously, we have a free Facebook group. I'm going to put the link in the description below. There's nothing like it out there. And hey, thanks for watching and subscribing to our channel. If you haven't subscribed, do it right now so you can get more help growing your portrait photography business. If you love today's training, right here, click right there to get more actionable steps. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.